The roar of the Platte River in late spring of 1876 was deafening as Logan Owens guided his chestnut mare along the muddy bank, searching for strays from his modest herd that grazed 20 miles east in the Wyoming Territory grasslands. What he found instead was a small bison calf, no more than a few weeks old, thrashing desperately in the swollen current, its dark eyes wide with terror as the rushing water dragged it downstream toward a cluster of jagged rocks that would surely kill it. Logan did not hesitate. He had seen enough death in his 26 years, first in the war and then in the unforgiving landscape of the frontier. He spurred his mare forward, leaping from the saddle before she had fully stopped, his boots hitting the soft earth with a squelch. The water was icy when he plunged in, stealing his breath and making his muscles seize, but he pushed forward with powerful strokes, fighting against the current that wanted to sweep him away as easily as it had the helpless calf. His fingers found purchase on the calf's thick coat, and he pulled the small creature against his chest, feeling its rapid heartbeat against his ribs. The animal bleated weakly, exhausted from its struggle, and Logan turned back toward the shore, his legs pumping beneath the surface as he fought for every inch of progress. The current wanted to pull them both under, wanted to claim them for its own, but Logan had not survived Shiloh and the long march home just to drown in a Wyoming river saving a bison calf. His feet finally found solid ground, and he hauled himself and the calf up the muddy bank, collapsing onto the grass with the small animal still clutched against him. Water streamed from his clothes and hair, and he was shaking violently from the cold, but the calf was breathing, its sides heaving with effort but its eyes clearer now, less panicked. "Easy now," Logan murmured, his voice hoarse. "You are safe. You saved my spirit animal." The voice came from behind him, soft but clear, and Logan twisted around so quickly he nearly lost his grip on the calf. A woman stood at the edge of the clearing, her presence so sudden and complete that Logan wondered if he had hit his head in the water and was now seeing visions. She was Shoshone. That much was clear from her dress and the way she wore her long black hair in 2 braids wrapped in otter fur, and she was the most beautiful woman Logan had ever seen. Her eyes were dark and deep, holding secrets and sadness and something else he could not name. She wore a dress of pale buckskin decorated with intricate beadwork in blue and white, and around her neck hung a necklace of carved bone and turquoise. She moved toward him with a grace that made it seem as though she floated above the ground, and when she knelt beside him and the calf, Logan caught the scent of sage and sweetgrass. "Your spirit animal," Logan managed, still trying to catch his breath. "The white bison is sacred to my people," she said, her English nearly perfect but accented in a way that made each word sound like music. "But this one is mine. I have dreamed of him since I was a child. 3 nights ago, I dreamed he was born by this river, and I have been searching. Then I dreamed he was in danger, and I came as fast as I could, but I cannot swim. I stood on that hill watching him drown, unable to help, praying for a miracle." She reached out and placed one hand on the calf, her fingers gentle against its wet coat. "You are that miracle." Logan looked down at the calf and saw what he had missed in his desperate rescue. Beneath the mud and river water, the young bison's coat was not the typical dark brown but a pale cream color, almost white. He had heard stories of white bison, sacred animals that appeared once in a generation, but he had never expected to see one, much less pull one from a river. "What is your name?" the woman asked, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with the cold water still dripping from his clothes. "Logan Owens," he said. "I have a small ranch about 20 miles east of here, near the Sweetwater River crossing." "I am Winona Crow," she said. My people have a camp 15 miles north in the foothills. I am the daughter of Red Hawk, our peace chief." She paused, then added, "I am 22 summers old and I am unmarried." The last part seemed important, though Logan was not sure why she had volunteered that information. He felt heat rise to his face despite the chill that had settled into his bones. "I am 26, he said, then felt foolish for responding in kind. "And also unmarried." Winona smiled, and it transformed her face from merely beautiful to something that made Logan's heart stutter in his chest. "The spirits brought you here today, Logan Owens. They brought you here to save this calf, yes, but also for another reason. I can feel it." She looked down at the calf, which had stopped shaking and was now trying to stand on wobbly legs. "He will need care. He is too young to survive alone, and I do not know where his mother is. She may have been killed by wolves or hunters. Will you help me care for him until he is strong enough to return to the wild?" Logan should have said no. He had a ranch to run, cattle to tend, and no time to play nursemaid to a bison calf, no matter how sacred. But when he looked into Winona's eyes, he found himself nodding. "I will help," he said, "but I know nothing about caring for bison calves." "I do," Winona said. "My grandmother taught me many things about the buffalo. They are part of our lives, part of our history and our future. I will teach you." Logan's mare had wandered a short distance away and was grazing on the spring grass, unconcerned with the drama that had just unfolded. Logan retrieved her and helped Winona lift the calf, which was surprisingly heavy despite its young age, across the saddle. The little bison bleated in protest but was too exhausted to put up much of a fight. "Your ranch is 20 miles east," Winona asked. "I will walk with you." "You can ride," Logan offered. "I will walk." Winona shook her head. "I am not accustomed to horses. My people prefer to travel on foot or with travois. I will walk beside you and we will talk. I want to know about the man who saved my spirit animal." They set off along the river, heading east toward Logan's ranch, with the mare walking between them and the calf draped across the saddle. The sun was high in the sky now, warming the air and helping to dry Logan's soaked clothes, though his boots squelched with every step, and he knew he would have blisters before they reached home. "You speak English very well," Logan said, after they had walked in silence for a while. "Better than many folks I have met who were born speaking it. My father believed that to make peace, we must understand those we make peace with," Winona explained. "When I was a child, missionaries came to our camp. My father allowed them to teach some of our children, including me. I learned to read and write English, to speak it without stumbling over the strange sounds. The missionaries did not stay long. They said we were too resistant to giving up our old ways, but I kept the knowledge they gave me." "Your father sounds like a wise man," Logan said. "He is," Winona agreed. "But wisdom does not always protect us from the changing world. More settlers come every year, taking land, killing the buffalo herds. My father seeks peace because he knows we cannot win a war, not against so many. But not all of our people agree with him. There are young warriors who want to fight, who say it is better to die with honor than to live as beggars on land that was once ours." Logan heard the pain in her voice and felt a pang of guilt, though he had done nothing personally to harm her people. "I am sorry," he said, not sure what else to offer. "I came out here after the war, looking for a fresh start. I did not mean to take anything from anyone. I just wanted a place where I could build something of my own, away from the death and destruction I had seen." "You fought in the white man's war?" Winona asked, glancing at him with renewed interest. "I did," Logan said, his jaw tightening at the memories. "For the Union. I was young and stupid and thought it would be an adventure. Instead, I saw boys younger than me die in mud and blood, screaming for their mothers. I saw things no man should see, and I did things I am not proud of. When it was over, I came west because I could not bear to stay in a place that reminded me of all that death. War leaves scars on the spirit as well as the body, Winona said softly. My people understand this. We have warriors who return from raids changed, haunted by what they have done and seen. It is why we have healing ceremonies, sweat lodges, vision quests. We know that a man must heal inside as well as outside. They walked in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the soft thud of the mare's hooves on the earth, the gentle bleating of the calf, and the distant rush of the river. Logan found himself stealing glances at Winona, admiring the way she moved with such confidence and grace, the way the sunlight caught in her dark hair and made it shine like a raven's wing. He had known beautiful women before, had even courted a girl back in Ohio before the war, but there was something different about Winona, something that drew him to her with a force he could not explain or resist. Tell me about your ranch, Winona said, breaking the silence. What is it like? Small, Logan admitted. I have about 200 acres of grassland, a cabin I built myself, a barn and a small herd of cattle, maybe 50 head. It is not much, but it is mine. I do most of the work myself, though I hire a few hands during roundup and branding season. I have a vegetable garden, some chickens, and a milk cow named Bessie who has a mean temperament but gives good cream. Winona laughed, and the sound was like bells ringing. A cow named Bessie with a mean temperament. I would like to meet her. She would probably kick you, Logan warned, but he was smiling. She kicks everyone, including me, and I am the one who feeds her every morning. Then she is a foolish cow, Winona said. One should not kick those who care for them. I tell her that regularly, Logan said. She does not listen. They talked as they walked, sharing stories about their lives, their families, their hopes and fears. Logan learned that Winona's mother had died when she was 12, struck down by a fever that had swept through the camp and taken many of the old and young. She had helped raise her younger siblings, teaching them the skills her mother had taught her, making sure they knew their history and traditions. She loved to work with beads and quills, creating intricate designs on leather, and she had a gift for healing, having learned from her grandmother the properties of various plants and herbs. Logan told her about his own mother, who had died when he was 16, worn down by years of hard work and poverty. He spoke of his father, a blacksmith who had drunk himself to death after Logan left for the war, unable to cope with the loss of his only son to battle, even though Logan had eventually returned. He talked about his decision to come west, to leave behind everything familiar and strike out on his own, seeking redemption or at least escape from his past. By the time they reached Logan's ranch, the sun was beginning its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The cabin came into view first, a sturdy log structure with a stone chimney and a covered porch. Beyond it stood the barn, slightly larger than the cabin, and a corral where several horses and the milk cow grazed on the spring grass. It is beautiful, Winona said, and Logan felt a surge of pride at her words. It is home, he said simply. They brought the calf into the barn, where Logan had a few empty stalls usually reserved for sick or injured animals. He laid down fresh straw while Winona examined the calf more thoroughly, checking for injuries or signs of illness. The little bison seemed remarkably healthy considering its ordeal, though it was clearly hungry and tired. He needs milk, Winona said. Does your mean cow have milk to spare? She does, Logan said, though getting it from her might be a challenge. She is particular about when and how she is milked. Then we must ask her politely, Winona said with a smile that suggested she was only half joking. Logan fetched a bucket and a stool, and together they approached Bessie's stall. The cow, a large Holstein with a black and white coat and suspicious eyes, regarded them with her usual disdain. Logan began speaking to her in a low, soothing voice, explaining the situation as if the cow could understand every word. Winona stood back and watched, her expression amused. "You talk to your animals," she observed. "They are good listeners," Logan replied, positioning the stool beside Bessie and placing the bucket beneath her. "And they do not judge or interrupt." To his surprise, Bessie stood calmly while he milked her, not attempting to kick the bucket over even once. When he stood with the bucket full of fresh milk, Winona was grinning at him. "She likes you more than you think," she said. "Or she sensed you standing there and did not want to embarrass herself in front of a guest," Logan countered. They returned to the calf's stall, and Winona showed Logan how to feed the young bison, dipping her fingers in the milk and letting the calf suckle them, gradually training it to drink from a cloth soaked in milk. It was slow, patient work, but eventually the calf was drinking readily, its tail swishing with contentment. "He is strong," Winona said with satisfaction. "He will survive." Logan realized with a start that the sun had set while they were working, and the barn was now lit only by the lantern he had hung on a hook. "It is getting late," he said. "You should stay the night. It is too dangerous to travel back to your camp in the dark, and I am sure your father will understand once you explain about the calf." Winona hesitated, and Logan could see the conflict in her eyes. "It would not be proper," she said finally, "for me to stay alone with an unmarried man. My people would talk, and it could cause trouble for my father, who is trying to maintain peace and good relations." "You can have the cabin," Logan offered quickly. "I will sleep in the barn. That way it will be proper. And in the morning, I will ride with you back to your camp so you can explain to your father about the calf and assure him that everything was respectful and appropriate." Winona considered this, then nodded. "Thank you, Logan Owens. You are a kind man and an honorable one. I accept your offer." Logan showed her to the cabin, which was admittedly sparse but clean. There was a main room with a fireplace, a table and chairs, a small kitchen area with a cast iron stove, and a sleeping area in the back with a simple bed frame and a mattress stuffed with straw and covered with quilts. He started a fire in the fireplace to ward off the chill of the evening and brought in water from the pump outside. "There is bread and some dried venison in the cupboard," he said, feeling suddenly awkward in his own home with this woman who was practically a stranger, yet felt somehow familiar. "Help yourself to anything you need." "You are generous," Winona said. "I will prepare food for both of us before you go to the barn. It is the least I can do to thank you for your help and your hospitality." Logan wanted to protest, but the thought of a hot meal was too tempting after the long, exhausting day. He sat at the table and watched as Winona moved around his kitchen with surprising ease, slicing the bread, arranging the dried meat on a plate, finding a jar of preserves he had made from wild berries the previous summer. She worked with quiet efficiency, and soon they were sharing a simple meal by the light of the fire. "Tomorrow I will bring you to my father," Winona said as they ate. "He will want to thank you for saving the calf and for treating me with respect. He will also want to discuss what is to be done with the calf as it grows. A white bison is sacred, but it is also vulnerable. There are those who would kill it for its rare hide or simply because they do not understand its significance. I will do whatever I can to protect it," Logan promised. "If your father agrees, the calf can stay here on my land until it is old enough and strong enough to fend for itself. I have enough grazing land, and I can keep it safe from hunters and predators." "That would be a great gift to my people," Winona said, her eyes shining with gratitude. and to me personally. This calf is important, Logan. I cannot explain how I know, but I feel in my heart that it is connected to my destiny, to something larger than myself. Saving it, caring for it, is part of my path. Then I am honored to help you walk that path, Logan said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. After the meal, Logan reluctantly excused himself and headed to the barn, carrying a blanket and a pillow from the cabin. He made himself a bed in the loft, where hay was stored for the winter months, and lay down trying not to think about how Winona was just 50 yards away, sleeping in his bed, her dark hair spread across his pillow. The image stirred something in him, a longing he had not felt in years, maybe ever. He had known desire before, but this was different. This was deeper, more profound, as if his very soul recognized something in hers. Sleep came slowly, and when it did, Logan dreamed of white bison running across endless plains, and of a woman with dark eyes who called his name. He woke before dawn, as was his habit, and checked on the calf first thing. The little bison was sleeping peacefully in its bed of straw, looking content and healthy. Logan fed and watered his horses and Bessie, then walked to the cabin, where smoke was already rising from the chimney. When he entered, he found Winona awake and making coffee on the stove, the rich aroma filling the small space. "Good morning," she said, turning to smile at him. "I hope you do not mind that I made myself at home. I found coffee in your cupboard." "I do not mind at all," Logan assured her, accepting the cup she offered him. The coffee was strong and hot, exactly the way he liked it. "Did you sleep well?" "I did," Winona said. "Your bed is very comfortable. I hope you are not too uncomfortable in the barn." "I have slept in worse places," Logan said truthfully. "During the war, there were nights when I would have given anything for a pile of clean straw and a roof over my head." They drank their coffee in comfortable silence, watching through the window as the sun rose over the distant mountains, painting the landscape in gold and pink. Logan felt a sense of peace he had not experienced in a long time, a feeling that everything was exactly as it should be in this moment. After coffee and a breakfast of fried eggs from his chickens and more of the bread from the previous night, they checked on the calf again and gave it more milk. The little bison was clearly feeling better, attempting to walk around the stall on unsteady legs, exploring its new home with natural curiosity. "He is adapting well," Winona said with satisfaction. "He is a fighter, like his ancestors." Logan saddled his mare and helped Winona climb up onto the horse's back. She sat stiffly, clearly uncomfortable with the height and unfamiliar motion, but she did not complain. Logan swung up behind her, his arms coming around her to grip the reins, and he tried not to think about how perfectly she fit against him, how good she smelled, like sage and smoke and something uniquely her. The ride to the Shoshone camp took most of the morning, following game trails and ancient paths that Winona directed him toward. As they drew closer, Logan began to see signs of habitation. Old fire rings, stripped tree bark where lodgepoles had been cut, worn paths through the grass. Then the camp itself came into view, a collection of buffalo hide lodges arranged in a large circle with a central gathering area. Children saw them first and came running, shouting in the Shoshone language and pointing at Logan. Warriors emerged from lodges, hands on weapons, expressions wary. Winona called out to them, her voice calm and authoritative, explaining in rapid Shoshone who Logan was and why he was there. The tension did not completely dissipate, but the warriors lowered their weapons and allowed Logan and Winona to proceed to the center of the camp. An older man emerged from one of the largest lodges, his face weathered and wise, his long hair streaked with gray and adorned with eagle feathers. He wore a shirt decorated with intricate quillwork, and carried himself with the bearing of a leader. This, Logan knew, was Red Hawk, Winona's father and peace chief of this band. Winona slid down from the horse and went to her father, speaking to him in their language. Logan remained mounted, unsure of the protocol, until Red Hawk gestured for him to dismount. He did so, and Winona switched to English so both men could understand. "Father, this is Logan Owens, the man I told you about. He saved the white calf from the river, risking his own life to do so. He has offered to shelter the calf on his land and care for it until it is old enough to survive on its own." Red Hawk studied Logan with dark, penetrating eyes that seemed to see straight into his soul. After a long moment, he spoke in English. "My daughter tells me you are a man of honor, that you showed her respect and kindness. For this, and for saving the sacred calf, you have the gratitude of my people." Logan inclined his head respectfully. "I was honored to help. The calf is a remarkable animal, and I will do everything in my power to protect it." "The white bison is a sign," Red Hawk said. "It appears in times of great change, carrying messages from the spirit world. That it was born now in these difficult times is significant. That you, a white man, were the one to save it is also significant. Perhaps the spirits are telling us that not all white men are our enemies, that there can be understanding and cooperation between our peoples." "I hope that is true," Logan said sincerely. "I did not come west to be anyone's enemy. I came seeking peace and a chance to build a life." Red Hawk nodded slowly. "You may stay and eat with us. We will talk more of the calf and what is to be done." Logan spent the rest of the day in the Shoshone camp, an experience unlike any he had ever had. He was fed a meal of roasted venison, wild roots, and a type of bread made from ground seeds that Winona explained was a staple of her people. He sat in Red Hawk's lodge with several of the elders and warriors, discussing through Winona's translation the care and protection of the white calf. It was agreed that the calf would remain on Logan's ranch, but that Winona would visit regularly to check on it and assist with its care, as the spiritual significance of the animal was too great to leave entirely in the hands of an outsider, even one who had proven himself trustworthy. As the sun began to set, Logan prepared to leave, knowing he needed to get back to his ranch and tend to his own animals. Winona walked him to where his mare was grazing at the edge of the camp. "Thank you for bringing me home safely," she said, "and for allowing the calf to stay with you. It means more than I can say." "You are welcome to visit whenever you like," Logan said, the words coming out before he could think better of them. "To check on the calf, I mean, and to teach me more about caring for it. I really do know nothing about bison." Winona's eyes sparkled with something that might have been amusement or might have been something deeper. "I will come in 3 days," she said. "The calf will need to be fed multiple times a day until it is older. If you do not mind the company, I can stay at your ranch during this time, sleeping in the cabin while you sleep in the barn, as before. It would be easier than traveling back and forth every day." Logan's heart leaped at the prospect of having her near, though he tried to keep his expression neutral. "That would be practical," he agreed, "and I promise to be a perfect gentleman as I was before." "I know you will," Winona said softly. "I trust you, Logan Owens." "That is not something I say lightly." Logan rode back to his ranch as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He spent the next 3 days in a state of anticipation, working harder than usual to make sure the ranch was in perfect order, that the cabin was clean and welcoming, that there was plenty of food and supplies. He told himself it was simple hospitality, but deep down he knew it was more than that. He wanted to impress Winona, wanted her to see that he was capable and responsible. someone worthy of her respect and perhaps, eventually, her affection. When she arrived on the third day, walking the 20 miles from her camp with a pack on her back containing her belongings, Logan felt his breath catch at the sight of her. She wore a different dress today, this one decorated with yellow and red beadwork in patterns that reminded him of sunflowers, and her hair was loose around her shoulders instead of braided. She looked beautiful and wild and completely at home in the landscape around them. "You walked the whole way?" Logan asked, concerned. "I would have come to get you on horseback. Walking is good," Winona said with a shrug. "It gives me time to think and to observe the land. I saw 3 deer, a family of rabbits, and an eagle hunting near the river. The earth speaks to those who take the time to listen." They fell into an easy routine over the following days. Winona slept in the cabin at night while Logan took the barn, but during the day they worked together, caring for the calf and tending to the various tasks required to keep the ranch running. Winona proved to be incredibly capable, learning quickly how to milk Bessie without getting kicked, how to collect eggs from the chickens without disturbing them too much, how to mend the fence in the corral where the wood had rotted and come loose. Logan, in turn, learned from her about the natural world around his ranch in ways he had never considered. She showed him which plants were edible and which were medicinal, how to read the signs of weather in the behavior of animals and the appearance of clouds, how to move through the landscape leaving barely a trace. She told him stories of her people, their history and traditions, the sacred places in the mountains and valleys that held spiritual significance. The calf, which Winona had named Tatanka Ska, meaning white bull in Shoshone, grew stronger each day. Within a week, it was bouncing around its stall with enthusiasm, butting its head against Logan's legs in a playful manner that was charming now, but would be dangerous when the animal reached its full size. Winona spent hours sitting with the calf, speaking to it in her language, singing songs that she said would help it remember its sacred nature even as it grew up away from its own kind. As the days turned into weeks, Logan found himself falling deeper under Winona's spell. She was unlike anyone he had ever known, a fascinating blend of strength and gentleness, wisdom and curiosity, tradition and adaptability. She challenged him in ways no one else ever had, questioning his assumptions and pushing him to see the world through different eyes. She also made him laugh with her dry observations about his mean cow, his stubborn chickens, and his tendency to talk to himself when he thought no one was listening. One evening, after they had finished their supper and were sitting on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains, Logan gathered his courage and spoke the words that had been building in his heart for days. "Winona, I need to tell you something." She turned to look at him, her expression curious. "What is it?" "These past weeks, having you here, working alongside you, learning from you, it has been the happiest time I can remember since before the war." Logan paused, searching for the right words. "You have become important to me. More important than I ever expected anyone to become again. I find myself thinking about you when you are not here, wondering what you are doing, hoping you are safe. And when you are here, I feel complete in a way I never have before." Winona was silent for a long moment, her face unreadable in the gathering dusk. Logan's heart sank, fearing he had overstepped, that he had ruined the easy friendship they had built. Then she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "I feel the same, Logan. From the moment I saw you on the riverbank, wet and shaking but holding that calf with such determination, I felt something shift in my heart. My grandmother would say the spirits brought us together for a reason. I believe she would be right." Logan reached out and took her hand, his rough fingers entwining with her smaller, more delicate ones. "What do we do about this?" he asked. I know the complications. I know that my people and yours have not always been at peace. I know that being with me might cause difficulties for you with your family and your tribe. And being with me will cause difficulties for you with other white settlers, who will not understand why you would choose a Shoshone woman over one of your own kind, Winona added. But I have learned that the heart does not care about such things. The heart wants what it wants. And what does your heart want? Logan asked, hardly daring to breathe. It wants you, Winona said simply. It wants this life we have been building together these past weeks. It wants more mornings working side by side, more evenings sitting on this porch watching the sun set, more nights knowing you are nearby even if we are not together. It wants a future I had not dared to imagine before. Logan raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently, a gesture of respect and affection. Then we will find a way to make that future real, he promised. I do not care what others think or say. I care about you and what we have together. If you are willing to face the challenges with me, then I am willing to face them with you. I am willing, Winona said, and then she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his in a kiss that was both tentative and sure, a promise and a question all at once. Logan responded gently, cupping her face in his hands, marveling at the softness of her skin and the way she fit so perfectly against him. The kiss deepened, becoming more passionate, and Logan felt something inside him that had been frozen since the war began to thaw, warmth spreading through his chest and into his limbs. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Logan rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered, the words escaping before he could stop them, but he did not want to stop them. They were true and she deserved to know. I love you too, Winona whispered back. With all that I am. They sat together on the porch until the stars filled the sky, holding hands and making quiet plans for their future. They both knew it would not be easy. Winona would need to speak to her father, to explain that she wished to be with Logan and to ask for his blessing. Logan would need to prepare himself for the prejudice and hostility they would likely face from other white settlers who would not approve of their union. But in that moment, with her hand in his and the wide Wyoming sky above them, those challenges seemed surmountable. The next morning, Winona announced that she needed to return to her camp to speak with her father. Logan offered to ride with her, but she shook her head. This is something I must do alone at first, she explained. I need to speak with my father privately to explain my feelings and my intentions. If he agrees to meet with you, then you can come to the camp, and we can discuss this properly, as is our custom. Logan understood, though he hated the thought of being separated from her even for a few days. He helped her pack her belongings and walked with her to the edge of his property, where he kissed her goodbye with a mixture of tenderness and longing. Come back to me, he said. Always, she promised. Logan threw himself into his work while Winona was gone, trying to distract himself from his worry and impatience. He repaired more fence, cleaned out the barn from top to bottom, and spent extra time with Tatanka Ska, who was growing rapidly and becoming more adventurous, attempting to escape his stall at every opportunity. Logan fashioned a stronger latch and reinforced the walls, knowing that soon the calf would be strong enough to simply smash through anything that stood in his way. 4 days after Winona left, Logan was working in the corral when he saw riders approaching from the north. His hand instinctively went to the rifle he kept nearby, a habit from his war days that he had never quite shaken, but he relaxed when he recognized Winona walking at the front of the group. She was accompanied by her father, Red Hawk, and 2 other men Logan recognized as elders from the tribe. Logan set down his tools and walked out to meet them, his heart pounding. This was it, the moment that would determine whether he and Winona had a future together, or whether their love would be forbidden by her people. Red Hawk dismounted from his horse with the ease of a man half his age and approached Logan. His expression was grave, giving nothing away. "Logan Owens," Red Hawk said formally, "my daughter has spoken to me of her feelings for you and her wish to join her life with yours. This is a serious matter that requires careful consideration." "I understand, sir," Logan said respectfully. "I want you to know that my intentions toward your daughter are completely honorable. I love her and wish to marry her, if she will have me and if you will give your blessing." Red Hawk studied him for a long moment. "Winona has told me of your character, of how you have treated her with respect and kindness. She has told me of your willingness to protect the sacred calf and to learn the ways of her people. These things speak well of you. But I must ask, are you prepared for the difficulties you will face? Many of your people will not accept this union. They will call you a traitor, a savage lover, worse things. Can you bear this for the sake of love?" "I can and I will," Logan said firmly. "I have faced death and lived through hell. The opinions of small-minded people hold no fear for me. Winona is worth any hardship, any sacrifice." Red Hawk glanced at Winona, who was watching the exchange with barely concealed anxiety. Then he looked back at Logan and, to Logan's immense relief, smiled slightly. "My daughter has chosen well," Red Hawk said. "You have my blessing to marry her, with the understanding that you will honor her ways as well as your own, that you will protect her and provide for her, and that any children you have will be taught about their Shoshone heritage and their place in our tribe." "I give you my word," Logan said, meaning it with every fiber of his being. "Then it is settled," Red Hawk declared. He turned to the elders who had accompanied him and spoke in Shoshone, and they nodded their approval. "We will have a ceremony in 3 days' time at our camp. It will be a blending of our traditions and yours. You may invite anyone you wish to attend, though I suspect not many of your people will come." "That is their loss," Logan said, looking at Winona, who was now smiling with tears streaming down her face. After Red Hawk and the elders departed, Logan and Winona stood together in the yard, holding each other tightly. "I was so afraid he would say no," Winona admitted, her face pressed against Logan's chest. "I was afraid I would have to choose between you and my family, my people." "I would never have asked you to make that choice," Logan said, stroking her hair. "If he had said no, we would have found another way, but I am glad we do not have to." "As am I," Winona said. She pulled back and looked up at him, her dark eyes shining. 3 days, and then you will be my husband and I will be your wife. It seems too good to be true." "It is true," Logan assured her, "and it is going to be wonderful." The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Winona stayed at the ranch, sewing a new dress for the ceremony and helping Logan clean and organize the cabin that would soon be their shared home. Logan rode into the nearest town, a small settlement called Prospect Station about 30 miles south, to buy supplies and to spread the word about his upcoming marriage. The reactions were mixed, ranging from congratulations from a few open-minded individuals to outright hostility from others who made their disapproval clear. Logan ignored the negative responses, purchasing everything he needed, including a simple gold band that would serve as a wedding ring. On the morning of the ceremony, Logan dressed in his best clothes, clean trousers, a white shirt, a vest, and a coat he had not worn since leaving Ohio. He looked at himself in the small mirror he kept on the wall and barely recognized the man staring back. His eyes, which had been hard and haunted since the war, now held hope and happiness. His face, usually set in grim lines, was relaxed and smiling. Love had transformed him, had given him back something he thought he had lost forever. He rode to the Shoshone camp with a sense of destiny, feeling that everything in his life had been leading him to this moment. The camp was bustling with activity when he arrived, people preparing food and setting up an area for the ceremony. Winona's relatives greeted him with varying degrees of warmth, some genuinely welcoming and others clearly reserving judgment. Logan did not let it bother him. He knew he would have to earn their trust and respect over time, just as Winona would have to earn the acceptance of any white neighbors who chose to acknowledge their existence. The ceremony itself was beautiful and moving, incorporating elements of both Shoshone tradition and Christian custom. Winona appeared wearing a dress of pure white buckskin decorated with hundreds of tiny beads and intricate patterns that must have taken months to create. Her hair was adorned with eagle feathers and wildflowers, and she looked so beautiful that Logan felt his throat tighten with emotion. Red Hawk performed the Shoshone portion of the ceremony, speaking words in his language that Winona later translated for Logan. Words about the joining of two spirits, the blending of two paths into one, the creation of a new family that honored the past while building toward the future. Then Logan recited the Christian marriage vows he had learned as a child, promising to love and cherish Winona in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, until death parted them. He slipped the gold ring onto her finger, and she gave him a band of braided sweetgrass that she had made herself, which he tied around his wrist. When Red Hawk pronounced them husband and wife, Logan kissed Winona to the cheers and ululations of her people, and in that moment, he felt like the luckiest man in the entire Wyoming territory. The celebration lasted well into the night, with feasting and dancing and storytelling. Logan did his best to participate in the traditions, joining in the dances even though he had no idea what he was doing, which made Winona laugh with delight. He listened to the stories the elders told, tales of great hunts and brave warriors and wise women who had shaped the history of the tribe. He felt honored to be accepted, even provisionally, into this community that valued family and tradition and connection to the land. As the moon rose high in the sky, Logan and Winona finally slipped away from the celebration and rode back to the ranch that was now their shared home. Logan had prepared the cabin as best he could, bringing in wildflowers and making sure everything was clean and welcoming. When they crossed the threshold as husband and wife, he lifted Winona in his arms and carried her inside, setting her down gently by the fire he had laid earlier in the day. "Welcome home, Mrs. Owens," he said softly. "I like the sound of that," Winona said, reaching up to cup his face. "Though I will also still be Winona Crow, as is the way of my people. I will carry both names, both identities, honoring all parts of who I am." "I would expect nothing less," Logan said, and then they came together in a kiss that quickly became passionate. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, a discovery of each other that went beyond the physical to touch something deeper and more profound. They made love slowly and carefully, learning what pleased each other, murmuring words of love and devotion in two languages. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the bed, Logan running his fingers through Winona's long hair while she traced patterns on his chest. "I never thought I would have this," Logan confessed in the darkness. "After the war, I thought I was too broken, too damaged to ever be whole again. But you have healed me, Winona. You have given me back my life. You have given me something too," Winona said. "Hope for a future that includes both of my worlds, hope that love can bridge divides, hope that our children will grow up in a world where being different is not a curse but a blessing." "Our children," Logan repeated, liking the sound of it. "How many do you want?" "As many as the spirits bless us with," Winona said with a smile he could hear in her voice. "Though I hope for at least 3, I do not want our children to be lonely." "3 sounds perfect," Logan agreed, already imagining a cabin full of children with Winona's dark eyes and his stubborn determination. Children who would grow up speaking 2 languages and honoring 2 cultures. They drifted off to sleep wrapped in each other's arms, and Logan's last thought before sleep claimed him was that he was finally, truly home. The first months of their marriage were an adjustment as they learned to live together, to navigate the small conflicts and compromises that every couple must face. Winona insisted on keeping many of her traditional ways, refusing to wear the restrictive corsets and heavy skirts that white women favored, instead continuing to dress in the practical buckskin dresses of her people. Logan supported her completely, not caring what others thought. She also maintained her spiritual practices, rising before dawn to pray and make offerings to the spirits, keeping a sacred bundle in their home that held items of spiritual significance, burning sage and sweetgrass to purify their space. In turn, Logan introduced Winona to aspects of his culture that she found interesting or useful. She learned to cook some of his favorite dishes, though she also taught him to appreciate the food of her people. She learned to read and write more fluently, devouring the few books Logan owned and asking him to buy more whenever he went to town. She was particularly fascinated by novels, loving the stories of faraway places and different times. They worked the ranch together, their partnership making the labor easier and more enjoyable. Winona proved to be an excellent manager, organizing their resources efficiently and finding ways to maximize their productivity. She also had a gift with animals, even winning over Bessie the cow, who stopped trying to kick her after the first week and actually seemed to enjoy Winona's presence. Tatanka Ska continued to grow, becoming larger and more magnificent with each passing month. By the time autumn arrived, the white bison was the size of a yearling, with a coat that gleamed like fresh snow in the sunlight. He had bonded strongly with both Logan and Winona, following them around the ranch like an oversized dog, though they were always careful to remember that he was a wild animal at heart, not a pet. Life was good, though not without its challenges. Some of Logan's neighbors made their disapproval of his marriage known, refusing to do business with him or speaking insults when they encountered him in town. Logan bore these slights with quiet dignity, never rising to the bait, though it angered him to see Winona subjected to such ignorance and hatred. She handled it better than he did, having long ago learned to armor herself against the prejudice of others. The worst incident came in late October, when a group of drunken cowboys rode out to the ranch and began shouting insults, calling Winona vile names and demanding that Logan send her back to her people before she contaminated him further. Logan confronted them with his rifle, his voice cold and deadly as he ordered them off his property. For a tense moment, it seemed violence would erupt, but something in Logan's eyes, a hardness left over from the war, made the cowboys think better of it. They rode off with more insults and threats, but they did not return. That night, Logan held Winona as she cried angry tears, apologizing for the ugliness she had to endure because of him. "This is not your fault," she told him fiercely. "This is their fault, their ignorance and their hatred. You have done nothing but love me and honor me. That is all that matters." "I wish I could protect you from it," Logan said helplessly. "You do protect me in the ways that matter," Winona assured him. "You stand beside me. You do not hide me or apologize for me. You show the world that you are proud to be my husband. That is the greatest protection you can give." As winter approached, Winona began to feel unwell in the mornings, and Logan worried that she had caught some illness. But when she missed her monthly courses and began to show other signs, they realized with joy and wonder that she was pregnant. The news thrilled them both, though it also brought new worries. Childbirth was dangerous in the best of circumstances, and more so on an isolated ranch far from doctors or experienced midwives. Winona eased Logan's concerns by bringing her grandmother, a healer named Blue Sky Woman, to stay with them as her pregnancy progressed. The old woman was tiny and wizened, with eyes that missed nothing and hands that moved with practiced confidence. She took over the cabin with gentle authority, preparing herbal remedies and giving Winona instructions on how to stay healthy for the baby's sake. She also took a liking to Logan, calling him good man with gentle heart and teaching him how to help when the baby came. Winter passed slowly, the ranch buried in snow, the work reduced to basic survival tasks of feeding animals and keeping fires burning. Logan spent the long evenings reading aloud to Winona and Blue Sky Woman, or listening to the old woman's stories of the past, tales of a time when the buffalo herds were so vast they covered the plains like a dark river, when her people roamed freely and lived according to the old ways. There was sadness in her stories, a mourning for what had been lost, but also strength and resilience, a determination to preserve what could be preserved and to adapt where adaptation was necessary. Tatanka Ska spent the winter in the barn, kept warm and fed but growing restless with confinement. Logan worried about what would happen in the spring. The bison was becoming too large to control easily, and his wild nature was asserting itself more strongly as he matured. They would need to make decisions soon about his future. Spring arrived in late March, the snow melting to reveal grass already beginning to green beneath the dormant brown. Winona was huge with child, her belly so large she could barely move, and Blue Sky Woman predicted the baby would come any day. She was right. On a warm April morning in 1877, as the meadowlark sang and the wildflowers began to bloom, Winona went into labor. Logan had faced battle without flinching, but nothing prepared him for the terror of watching his wife in pain, knowing there was little he could do to help. He held her hand and brought water and let her squeeze his fingers until he thought the bones would break, while Blue Sky Woman worked with quiet confidence, murmuring prayers and encouragement. After 12 hours of labor, just as the sun was setting, their son was born. He emerged squalling and red-faced, with a thick shock of dark hair and powerful lungs. Blue Sky Woman cleaned him and wrapped him in soft furs, then placed him in Winona's arms. Logan sat beside them, looking down at his son with a sense of awe so profound he could barely breathe. "He is perfect," Winona whispered, tears streaming down her exhausted face. "Our son is perfect." "What should we name him?" Logan asked, gently touching the baby's tiny hand, marveling when the little fingers wrapped around his one large finger with surprising strength. "In my tradition, we wait to name a child until we know their spirit," Winona said. "But we can give him a name for now, something to call him until his true name reveals itself." They discussed various options, finally settling on Samuel Logan Owens. Samuel being Winona's choice from the Bible stories she had learned from the missionaries, Logan for his father, and Owens for their family name. Little Samuel would also have a Shoshone name eventually, given by Blue Sky Woman in a ceremony when he was older. The first weeks of Samuel's life were exhausting and wonderful. He was a hungry baby, nursing frequently and demanding constant attention. Logan marveled at how such a tiny creature could so completely take over their lives, but he did not mind. He loved his son with a fierce protectiveness that surprised him, understanding for the first time what his own father must have felt watching him ride off to war. Blue Sky Woman stayed through the spring and into early summer, teaching Logan and Winona how to care for their son and making sure Winona recovered fully from the birth. When she finally announced it was time to return to her people, Logan thanked her with genuine gratitude, giving her gifts of food and cloth to take back to the camp. "You have been a good husband to my granddaughter," Blue Sky Woman told Logan in her halting English. "You honor her and protect her and love her truly. For this, you have my blessing and my gratitude. May your children be many and your days be long." After Blue Sky Woman left, Logan and Winona settled into a new routine that included caring for Samuel while still managing the ranch. It was challenging to balance everything, but they made it work through cooperation and dedication. Winona often worked with Samuel strapped to her back in a cradle board, the traditional way Shoshone mothers carried their babies, leaving her hands free while keeping the baby close and secure. The question of what to do with Tatanka Ska became urgent as spring turned to summer. The white bison was now nearly full-grown, massive and powerful, and clearly yearning for freedom. Winona spent many hours sitting with him, communicating in the wordless way she had with animals, and she came to understand that it was time to let him go. "He needs to find others of his kind," she told Logan one evening. "He needs to run free on the plains, to be what he was meant to be. We saved him and raised him, but we cannot keep him forever." "Where will he go?" Logan asked, worried about the dangers a white bison would face. "Hunters will want him for his rare hide. Even some Indians might kill him, despite the spiritual significance." "We will take him to the sacred lands, the places my people know where few whites venture," Winona said. "There are valleys deep in the mountains where small herds still run. We will release him there and trust the spirits to protect him." So they made plans for a journey into the high country. Logan arranged for a neighboring rancher, one of the few who had remained friendly despite his marriage to Winona, to check on the ranch and the livestock while they were gone. They packed supplies for a 2-week journey, filled their saddlebags with dried meat and grain, and set out one morning in late June with Samuel in his cradle board on Winona's back, and Tatanka Ska following behind them like a faithful hound. The journey took them deep into the Wind River Range, following ancient trails that Winona knew from childhood. They traveled through forests of pine and aspen, across alpine meadows carpeted with wildflowers, beside streams so clear you could see every pebble on the bottom. Logan had never been this far into the mountains and was awed by the wild beauty of the landscape. On the 5th day, they reached a high valley surrounded by steep peaks, a hidden paradise where a small herd of bison grazed peacefully. Winona led Tatanka Ska to the edge of the valley and removed the rope they had used to lead him. She spoke to him in Shoshone, her voice soft and full of emotion, then stepped back. The white bison stood still for a moment, as if uncertain, then tossed his massive head and trotted down into the valley. The other bison looked up at his approach, and Logan tensed, worried they might attack the newcomer. But instead, they seemed to accept him, and within minutes, Tatanka Ska was grazing peacefully among them, just another member of the herd despite his unusual coloring. Winona wept as they watched him go, and Logan held her, understanding her tears were not from sadness but from a bittersweet joy at seeing her spirit animal fulfill its destiny. "He will be safe here," she said. "I can feel it. This valley is protected, watched over by the spirits. He will live a long life and maybe father other calves, spreading his sacred bloodline." They stayed in the valley for 2 more days, making sure Tatanka Ska was truly settled, then began the journey back to the ranch. The trip home felt both lighter and heavier. Lighter without the responsibility of the bison, heavier with the sense of an era ending, of letting go of something precious. When they arrived home, they found everything in good order, the animals healthy and the garden thriving. Life resumed its normal pattern, but something had shifted. With Tatanka Ska gone, Logan and Winona turned their full attention to building their life together and raising their son. Samuel grew from an infant to a toddler, walking early and talking late but making up for it when he finally found his voice. He was a happy child, curious and fearless, with his mother's dark eyes and his father's stubborn determination. Logan loved watching Winona with their son, teaching him words in both English and Shoshone, singing him songs from her childhood, showing him how to observe the natural world with respect and wonder. The seasons turned, and their second child came 2 years after the first, a daughter they named Elizabeth Winona Owens, with a Shoshone name of Morning Star. She was tiny and delicate, with Logan's lighter coloring but Winona's fine features, and she had a temperament as fierce as her brother's was easygoing. Logan joked that Elizabeth would be the one to watch out for, that she would be running the ranch before she was 10 years old. More years passed, bringing both joy and sorrow, triumph and hardship. There was a terrible drought one summer that nearly broke them, forcing Logan to sell half his herd just to survive. There was a winter so harsh they lost most of their chickens and nearly lost Bessie the cow. There were conflicts with other ranchers over water rights and grazing land, made worse by the prejudice some still held against Logan for his marriage to a Shoshone woman. But there were far more good times than bad. There were roundups where Logan and Winona worked side by side, pushing cattle across the plains with Samuel riding his own pony beside them, and Elizabeth strapped to someone's back. There were visits from Winona's family, Red Hawk coming to stay for weeks at a time as he grew older, sitting on the porch with Logan and smoking while they discussed everything from politics to philosophy to the best way to mend a fence. There were gatherings with the few neighboring families who had become genuine friends, potluck dinners where cultures mixed and children played together, without caring about the color of each other's skin. Their family grew again with the birth of another son, James Red Hawk Owens, and then a final daughter, Sarah Blue Sky Owens, named for Winona's grandmother who had passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 93. Logan and Winona's home was filled with noise and laughter and love, with children learning to ride before they could properly walk, learning to read from Logan's precious books, learning the stories and traditions of both their heritages. Red Hawk died when Samuel was 12, passing away in his sleep at Logan and Winona's ranch, where he had come to spend his final days. They buried him on a hilltop overlooking the ranch, with a view of the mountains to the west and the plains to the east, following both Shoshone customs and white traditions. Logan grieved for the man who had become not just his father-in-law, but a true friend and teacher, who had welcomed him when others would have turned him away, who had blessed his marriage and loved his children as his own grandchildren. The years brought changes to the world around them as well. The Wyoming Territory became a state in 1890, part of a rapidly changing West that was losing its wildness. The great buffalo herds were gone, hunted nearly to extinction, and many Indian tribes had been forced onto reservations. Winona's people struggled to maintain their independence and their way of life in the face of increasing pressure to assimilate. Logan and Winona did what they could to help, offering their ranch as a safe place for those who needed it, advocating with local authorities for fair treatment, raising their children to honor both cultures and to stand up for justice. Through it all, their love remained constant and strong. They still made time for each other despite the demands of running a ranch and raising 4 children, still sat together on the porch in the evenings watching the sunset, still laughed together at private jokes and held each other through the hard times. Logan had never stopped being grateful for the day he pulled a drowning bison calf from a river and met the woman who would change his life forever. When Samuel turned 18, he announced his intention to go to university in the East, to study law so he could fight for the rights of his mother's people through the legal system. Logan was proud and terrified, worried about his son going so far away into a world that might not accept him, but Samuel was determined and Winona supported him completely. "He must follow his path," she told Logan. "We raised him to be strong and to stand for what is right. Now we must trust that he will succeed." Elizabeth, at 16, had no interest in leaving the ranch. She declared her intention to stay and help her parents run the place, eventually taking it over when they were too old to manage it themselves. She had grown into a formidable young woman, able to outride and outrope most men in the territory, with a business sense that impressed even the hardest merchants in town. James, at 14, was still finding his way, interested in everything from blacksmithing to medicine to art. Logan suspected he would be the wanderer of the family, the one who needed to explore the world before settling down. Sarah, at 12, was the family storyteller, always scribbling in journals and making up elaborate tales that she forced her siblings to act out. On a warm evening in June of 1895, Logan and Winona sat on their porch as they had done countless times before, watching the sun set over the mountains they both loved. They were in their 40s now, showing the wear of hard work and harder times, but still strong, still devoted to each other. "Do you ever regret it?" Logan asked suddenly. "Marrying me, I mean. The difficulties you have faced, the prejudice, being caught between two worlds." Winona looked at him with surprise and then with tender amusement. "Not for a single moment," she said firmly. "You gave me love and partnership and a family. You have honored my people and my traditions while sharing your own. Our children are strong and confident, comfortable in both worlds, able to bridge divides. What more could I ask for?" "I just want you to be happy," Logan said. "That has always been my goal from the very beginning." "I am happy," Winona assured him, taking his hand. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible on that day I watched you pull a drowning calf from the river. I told you then that you saved my spirit animal, but what I did not know yet was that you would also save me, from a life half-lived, from loneliness, from giving up on the possibility of love." "You saved me too," Logan said. "From bitterness and isolation, from being trapped in the past, from never learning what it means to truly belong somewhere and to someone." They sat in comfortable silence, as the sky turned from gold to pink to deep purple. In the barn, the animals settled for the night. In the house behind them, they could hear their younger children laughing over something. From the distant mountains came the call of a wolf, wild and free. "Tell me the story again," Winona said suddenly. "About the day we met." Logan smiled. He had told this story 100 times to their children and grandchildren, to friends and neighbors, but he never tired of it. "It was a day in late spring, 1876, he began. "The Platte River was swollen with snowmelt, and I was searching for strays from my herd. I heard a sound, a desperate bleating, and I looked down to see a bison calf caught in the current, being swept toward rocks that would surely kill it. And you did not hesitate," Winona continued, joining her voice to his in the familiar telling. "You jumped into that freezing water without a thought for your own safety and pulled the calf to shore. And when I looked up, there you were," Logan said softly. "The most beautiful woman I had ever seen, telling me that I had saved your spirit animal. I thought you were a vision, something I had conjured from the cold and exhaustion. But I was real," Winona said. As real as the love that grew between us, as real as the life we have built together, as real as the promises we made and have kept, Logan agreed. They remained on the porch until the stars emerged, bright pinpoints in the vast darkness, and when they finally went inside to their warm home filled with their children, Logan felt the same sense of rightness and completion he had felt on their wedding night so many years ago. The years continued to pass, bringing new grandchildren and new challenges and new joys. Samuel became a successful lawyer, advocating for native rights and winning important cases that set precedents for fairer treatment. Elizabeth married a rancher from a neighboring spread, and they merged their lands, creating one of the largest successful ranches in Wyoming, proving that hard work and good management mattered more than prejudice or social status. James did indeed wander, spending years traveling and learning various trades before finally settling down as a teacher on a reservation, helping native children learn to navigate both worlds. Sarah became a writer, publishing stories about the West that captured the complexity and beauty of frontier life. Logan and Winona became grandparents many times over, their home a gathering place for family celebrations and holidays. They grew old together gracefully, their hair turning gray but their love remaining young. They still held hands when they walked, still stole kisses when they thought no one was looking, still found joy in the simple pleasure of each other's company. One autumn day, when Logan was 69 and Winona was 65, they took a journey back to the valley where they had released Tatanka ska nearly 40 years earlier. The trip was harder than it had been in their youth, their bodies protesting the long ride and the steep trails, but they were determined. When they reached the valley, they were rewarded with an incredible sight. A herd of bison grazed peacefully, and among them were several white bison, their pale coats gleaming in the sunlight. Tatanka ska's bloodline had survived and thrived, just as Winona had hoped. "He did it," Winona whispered, tears streaming down her weathered face. "He survived and had calves and grandcalves. The sacred bloodline continues." "Just like our own," Logan said, putting his arm around her shoulders. "We took a chance on love and look what we created. A family, a legacy, a bridge between worlds." They stayed in the valley for 3 days, camping under the stars and watching the white bison. On their last night, Winona had a dream. She saw Tatanka ska, old now but still magnificent, and he spoke to her in the way of spirit animals. "Thank you for saving me," he said in her dream. "Thank you for giving me a chance at life. You and your husband were meant to meet, meant to love, meant to create something new and beautiful in this changing world. You have walked your path with honor and courage. Be at peace." When Winona woke and told Logan about her dream, he held her close and understood that they had received a blessing, a confirmation that their lives had meaning and purpose beyond their own happiness. They returned home to their ranch, to their family, to the life they had built with love and determination and hope. They knew their time was growing shorter, that the years ahead were fewer than the years behind, but they faced the future with the same courage they had faced every challenge throughout their long marriage. On a spring evening much like the one when they had first met, Logan and Winona sat together on their porch, surrounded by children and grandchildren who had come to celebrate their 45th wedding anniversary. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant colors, and the air was filled with the sound of laughter and music. "Look at what we have created," Winona said, gesturing at the gathering around them. "All of this, from one moment of courage and compassion, from one decision to follow our hearts despite the obstacles. It has been the greatest adventure of my life," Logan said. "Loving you, building a life with you, raising our family. I would not change a single moment, not even the hard ones, because they all led us here to this perfect moment. Elizabeth stood and called for everyone's attention. "A toast," she announced, raising her glass, "to my parents who showed us what real love looks like, who taught us that courage means standing up for what is right even when it is difficult, who proved that different backgrounds and cultures can not only coexist, but can create something stronger and more beautiful than either could alone. May we all be so blessed in our lives." To Logan and Winona, the gathering chorused, raising their glasses. As the celebration continued around them, Logan and Winona held hands and watched the sunset, content in the knowledge that their love story, which had begun with a drowning bison calf and a chance meeting by a river, had created ripples that would extend far into the future, touching lives they would never meet, making the world just a little bit better, a little bit kinder, a little bit more hopeful. The stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, the same stars that had witnessed their first kiss, their wedding night, every important moment of their long life together. And under those eternal stars, Logan and Winona sat together, their journey nearly complete, their love story one for the ages, a testament to the transformative power of compassion, courage, and an open heart. In the years that remained to them, they continued to live with grace and dignity, supported by the large, loving family they had created, respected by the community they had helped build, at peace with the choices they had made and the life they had lived. When Logan finally passed away at the age of 76, with Winona holding his hand and all their children gathered around, his last words were, "Thank you for the adventure, my love. I will wait for you on the other side." Winona lived another 4 years, spending her final days surrounded by family, telling stories of the old days, passing on traditions and wisdom to the grandchildren and great-grandchildren who hung on her every word. When she too passed, peacefully in her sleep at the age of 76, the family buried her beside Logan on the hilltop where they had buried Red Hawk so many years before. The ranch continued under Elizabeth's capable management, becoming a place where people of all backgrounds were welcome, where love was celebrated and prejudice rejected, where the old ways and the new ways existed side by side in harmony. The story of Logan and Winona became family legend, told and retold at gatherings, a reminder of where they had come from and what they stood for. And far away in a hidden mountain valley, white bison still ran free, their rare beauty a living memorial to a love story that had started with a rescue and had become something timeless and transcendent, proving that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can change the world in ways both large and small, creating ripples that extend through generations, touching hearts and transforming lives long after the original actors have left the stage. The story of Logan Owens and Winona Crow was complete, a tale of love conquering prejudice, of courage in the face of adversity, of two people from different worlds creating something new and beautiful together. It was a story that would be remembered and treasured, passed down through the generations as a reminder that love, real love, knows no boundaries and can overcome any obstacle when two hearts are truly committed to each other and to the life they build together.